The reason that I've been able to sort of get to where I've got to, you lay your hands on lots of different disciplines.
You know who to speak to, you know who to talk to.
We need to be, probably in Australia, a bit more adaptable. I don't mind admitting that I failed pretty badly. Not another job in the country that's as complex from that aspect as what we're doing in the Gold Coast right now. And I think this is like a really key message to anybody listening.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of How to Become. We're your hosts, Adam Powell and Harvey Rivers, and today we're joined with the project director of the Gold Coast's biggest ever infrastructure project, Glynn Ladbrook.
Hi fellas, thanks very much for having me.
Awesome. Mate, so we're obviously fellow Poms. You're also from the motherland. Take us back to the start. Where did you grow up?
So all the way back to the start. So from the Midlands originally, first like sort of 10 years in Derbyshire, and then moved over with the parents into Nottingham, and that's where I sort of spent all my formative years, and that's where I got into my first real job, probably that sort of laid the foundation of me getting into engineering really. So
people in Australia, I think they think London is England. They don't understand there's actually places outside.
We've all been asked. I know so and so from. Do you know?
Yeah, he's in London.
There's only about 60, 70 million people in the UK and about 25 million in Australia, but you know everybody. Yeah.
So the Midlands is, I guess, obviously the middle of the country, right? Where me and Harves are from as well. And so I'm from Worcester, Harves from Hereford, and Derby's
A bit further north, east.
Yeah, I grew up sort of just south of the South Yorkshire border, so that's why the accent's a bit thick. And
Derby County fan?
It hasn't gone at all in the 13 years that I've been over here. So maybe get a little bit of that inflection of
bit of a hay.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
adds his full Aussie nowadays.
Yeah. No one wants me. The Aussies think I'm English, and the English think I'm Aussie.
Yeah.
I can't win.
That's it.
So where did the first role come around? Why did you decide to take that venture? Was that a family decision? Was you just apply for a job and got the call up?
No. I applied for a job weirdly through the Chamber of Commerce, local Chamber of Commerce in Nottingham at the time. Engineering wasn't even really a sort of thing that was on my radar. Just saw a job that piqued my interest. I came out of sixth form, was debating uni or really going into work, and found that I just really lost interest in the academic side of things. A lot of friends that had gone into trades. My dad was an electrician, plumber, so kitchen, bathroom fitter, so in the trades as well. And sort of felt like I wanted to get into work. So that's applied for a Chamber of Commerce for a role as a technical assistant for a company called Scott Wilson, who through various acquisitions are effectively now AECOM.
Oh, cool.
But doing a very different aspect to what you'd normally associate with AECOM. So kind of out on site, surveys, engineering surveys, providing information to engineers and consultants, that type of stuff to provide to clients about largely what we were doing back then was pavement renewals and things like that. So crap money.
Yeah.
I'll keep the language clean.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mate, don't have to worry about that.
There's lots of night work. Crap money because they needed everybody to work nights, so they incentivised you through uplifts. But it just gave me just doing massive hours, massive exposure. I look at that job as being really formative, laid a foundation for me to be where I am now. Mm-hmm. We were very small. I was the 25th employee of that organisation. When I left 8.5 years later, we were 200, and I was running a team of people back then. It was about 35 large out of that 200, just doing surveys and investigation work in new kind of disciplines to what we did when I first started. And they just a really innovative, small company, really open-minded. So they give you as much rope as you could hang yourself with, and I managed to just keep the noose loose enough times that I survived and got through it. I love it. But I think the beauty of that stuff is, whilst it was different to sort of engineering that we get involved in now with these big mega projects, the reason that I've been able to sort of get to where I've got to in the time that I've got to is you lay your hands on lots of different disciplines. So you've got to kind of run a business, you run a project, you get involved in commercial, you get involved in resolving disputes. Even at a very young age, you get involved in recruiting people, you get involved in managing people. In reality, one of the reasons I left was we got too involved in having to manage too many people and some really low-level issues. So people not turning up for work on time, or damage to vehicles and property and things like that, which was all quite avoidable. So just sort of got a bit sick of that stuff, and then opened the door through being in that industry. Met a lot of friends who are good friends to this day that were in and around engineering, but in sort of more large-scale, complex projects. And so was chatting to a mate at a wedding. They were looking for people. Started an interview process and ended up becoming an assistant project manager for a contractor working in a rail systems business, which is not that dissimilar to kind of stayed in that stream, really, working through rail, and that's what got me into Australia in the first place.
Mate, going back to that first role as that technical assistant where you said it was crap money and night shifts, do you remember your mindset and what kind of you were feeling just to keep going? Was it always that bigger goal?
I think, look, I always had a real good work ethic. I don't think I was super ambitious at that point in time. I think that came as you got opportunity and you saw. I never really liked taking a lot of instruction. I like running my own show. So whatever job I did, I always wanted to I know what I'm doing. I need to show initiative. I need to show that I've got capability, competency to manage myself, even at a very low level, and work autonomously. Those jobs kind of help you do that. You go out on night shift, there's maybe 3 or 4 people that you've got to put to work, and you're 20 years old, you put in 40, 50-year-olds to work, telling them what you need to do, trying to get the outcomes of an investigation, and think about what the guys that are doing the desktop analysis of what we're coming back from site with are going to need. So you've got to put that thinking into place, and I think that just naturally grew this kind of, I just like to be in charge of myself, in charge of the people at site, setting the strategy, problem solving the things that are going on. And I suppose it just snowballs as you get older and you get to bigger and better things.
In terms of that fork in the road moment then, so you decided to go to get a job rather than go to uni.
Yeah.
So really you're 4 years, I think it's the 4-year course, 4 years ahead of your peers at that point.
Yep, certainly in terms of, I mean, I think for me, I'd definitely look at that in terms of my experience, like what you learn. I've got bags of time for graduates and uni students. We employ lots of them. Graduates are really the lifeblood of our industry in terms of what we've got to do to meet the demands of the industry into the future. We've got lots of aging people in the industry. But I think for me, I just felt like the pathway wasn't the right pathway for me. And I think we need to be, probably in Australia, a bit more adaptable to some of those pathways, because I don't see enough opportunity outside of those university pathways. But I like the idea of being able to work, and a crust. It gave me, opportunity to do things and socialise with my mates with parity. So they were obviously all working as well. They'd chosen not to go that way. So, we were going on holidays and things like that. And I think, my drive was a lot about earning a living and trying to, have a social life and be on par with my mates at the time. I think then I was just lucky that by a bit of good fortune, I fell into the right industry that I could start to see, this job's going to offer day release, so I can get my academic qualifications for another mechanism. So I'm not going to be behind, but I'm gaining that work experience that others probably don't get. And so I think there's a lot more effort, I reckon. The fun, you get the fun in a different way. Like you go play hard, you work hard, play hard.
I was going to ask that.
Doesn't happen at uni, but certainly I think you have to. Yeah, you work hard and you have to play a bit harder. So that was fun, but I like that, and I think working nights as well gave you a different ability to flex time with friends.
Yeah, of course.
So go and get on it on a Saturday night, Sunday night, And if I was on night shift on Monday, it's like
you've got
a place to recover from a hangover. Which,
any engineers out there listening.
Clearly
this is what you want to hear.
Clearly wouldn't promote that, but I think having a healthy social life and a balance is really important. And I felt I had good balance, and didn't feel like I was sacrificing one thing or the other too much.
Yeah. Do you feel like that helped you with your study? Because I know personally from my experience, I went to uni for the social and the parties, and probably didn't
I was a bit
focus too
nervous
much
about doing this interview, to be honest, because early on I just failed a lot.
Yeah.
But I think that's another sort of major thing in my whole career development, really. I've worked on some really tough projects, really challenging initiatives that we might have rolled out in companies, and I've also let myself down a bit personally early on. So I got very into work. The first time I went through day release, I don't mind admitting that I failed pretty badly. I was prioritising work and getting out on night shift and earning coin, and I probably only attended about 50% of the days. Always made the excuse that I needed to work. I was taking shifts, and I wasn't managing that well enough with work to say, "No, you can't roster me on." Just trying to cover all bases. So yeah, I remember. I got a fairly serious dressing down from an old managing director for me letting them down and letting myself down. I think, again, it's just another kind of really pivotal conversation where you sort of, hang on a minute, it's great that you've got access to all these things and ambition, but you do need to back it up with some academia, and you need to. That's as much as a priority as it is getting out and making, helping the business deliver new work. So that was, I would say, but for me, I reckon it's all about people's mindset. I just know for my mindset, being in that day release and being around work, and I've been told in the past that I've got like a level of dyslexia as well. It's quite a low level, but sometimes I struggle to visualize things unless I've actually done them, and I see that in my. I can reflect on that more and more now, and I think from my learning type, being in work, seeing it, doing it, then talking about surveying, and then actually, seeing that work done, you can conceptualize those things, and I can adapt to it. Once I've seen it, I can think through it really quickly, and I can think through like the challenges or the issues and concept. But until I see it, sometimes I really struggle to like get my head around.
That's really cool to share, because I think if you do have dyslexia, right, you can probably have a bit of a limiting belief as a ceiling for how far you can go and what you can do, depending on the level of severity, I'm sure. But to be sat where you are, I didn't say, I've got this small side of it, but that actually has could be a bit of a superpower as well, because you're saying then when you do see something, it clicks.
Yeah. I've never felt like it's held me back. It's just that knowledge, I think, really about how I learn is something that's helped me. I know if I want to pick things up the quickest, I kind of just need to get my hands dirty and do it. And I think that's kind of key in all of where I am today. I've done lots of jobs and lots of things and been involved in, because of smaller companies, and you touch lots more different things. When you get to this level, the main adjustment is doing it in volume and being able to manage all of those things and manage the people and make sure that it's delegated appropriately. Small organisation, small teams, do a lot of things yourself. So you get that direct experience, but you're actually not learning the core skills of managing through people and delegation, which when you get to the really big projects, it's absolutely imperative that you need to lead more than do. And that was a fair adjustment for me, I think, in sort of my early mid-30s.
Yeah. I love the way you talk about the balance of experience and academia, because I typically recruit in the finance space, and I know that when people are early on, I say to them, just go and get as much experience as possible, even if it's an accounts officer role. Go into a commercial company and get experience and then do your qualifications. And it's similar to yourself, there does come that time where if you want to be a CFO of a multinational organisation turning over hundreds of millions a year, you need a degree, you probably need an MBA, and then you need a CA, CPA. So it's trying to juggle it at the right time.
Totally agree. In our industry as well, so you might go project management, Australian Institute of Project Management, and start to get CCPD, CCPM, that type of stuff. you got to start thinking about those things, the professional registrations. In finance, even more important, probably, it's your CPA. You're really, really limiting, I think.
There's a ceiling, yeah.
But I think we don't do a very good, industries in general don't do a good enough job of explaining is that those professional qualifications are generally open to you through different academic pathways. They can be based on experience, although in the engineering field that's got a lot harder and harder. But it is available to you to go that route. So you're not just going to get chartered engineer. You can't just have to go through uni to become a chartered engineer. You can, if you really got the passion for it, but your learning type is more adaptable and develops quicker based on being actually at the coalface and seeing it done. Then it doesn't limit you getting there. I think, but I don't think we really expose that enough. When I was back in the UK apprenticeship and I was starting to think about going into work, apprenticeships were becoming a bit more talked about. I think they've spent developed those pathways a lot more again now. They're a lot more open, but it was very early days really that they were starting to get back on the agenda. So I didn't really want to go that route, and this was just perfect. Like sort of meant, college, kind of getting to degree level, but through work. But I think for me overall, those aspects were really important. But just being in a small company that was growing fast, that's probably the biggest individual thing.
Yeah, great. That's good to know. And then what about the move to Australia? So how did that come around in the first place? Why did you want to make the move over here?
So looking for considering a change. I don't need to be polite about the lifestyle of Australia is preferred.
Yeah,
I'll say that. So yeah, it's but looking for a bit of a change and opportunity. I worked a lot in rail and civil projects, and worked a lot in rail systems projects. And the people that I met, they'd got a lot of friends or ex-colleagues that had made the migration to Australia. Particularly in rail, there's a huge amount of expats. So you're not too far removed from somebody that's either done it or knows someone that's done it. And all said the same sort of things. Work environment's great. It's easy to settle in. So considered a bit of like the Middle East as well, but wasn't really our sort of thing. And for me, for work, it was more commercial building, that type of stuff, and I really enjoyed being in the infrastructure space.
Was it a tough process? Because I know when we came over, we've jumped through the ringer, and Ads has been selling scratch cards in Pack Fair at times.
No, I was really lucky. So getting to that part, so I got a call from a recruiter. They were looking for people in Perth to work on BHP and mining projects. This is like 2011, so mining boom had been going for a few years at that point, and it was looking strong. Iron ore price was high. So return on investment was like massive and really quick. So they were talking to expats to try and bring them over. And at the time, there was still a 457, so 457 visa process. But they also had LAFA that would continue to be open. So they were able to pay, from a remuneration perspective and a cost of living perspective, it was really easy to make it stack up. Not enough people in Australia to facilitate. They were already FIFOing huge amounts of people from the East Coast. At the time, so they were looking overseas. So I was pretty lucky, I think, though, with that whole process, in that the person that I interviewed with, we struck up a connection, even though it was 1:00 in the morning when I was doing my interview in the UK. And Paul, who I interviewed with at the time, we just struck up a connection. We chatted for 3 hours as part of that interview.
Yeah, wow.
Agreed we wanted to go forward, but I didn't see this obviously from the UK, but post arriving into Perth, and I got some knowledge just of how much he actually pushed and continued to push my employment. There's obviously a lot of people saying it's bloody difficult. The visa processes, it's expensive. We've got to get the client to pay for it. Blah blah blah. There's lots of reasons why you look at it and go, it's a bit too hard. I think I was really lucky. I had a champion that was in country, in the organisation that I was going to work for, that just continued to push that. Now, I've chatted we've got no other candidates really that are credible. This guy looks like he wants to have a crack at it. He's got the experience we need. He's enthusiastic. And if it had not been for Paul, I think it might not have happened. Just from what I heard after I arrived. So I think you do need a bit of a champion here, and I can see how that's for others. It's more difficult. I think being in Australia, like if I've employed lots of people through working holiday visas, but they're in country, the transition of a visa is a lot easier to consider because you can see the person in the flesh. You can see, okay, they can be at a desk in 2 weeks' time. The uncertainty of a visa process from overseas with relocation and all the rest of it. It's like, well, even if we get this bit out of the way, it's got to give their notice. They've got to arrive. They've got to get their family arrangements in place. It can be there's a lot more cons probably than pros, and you start to stack the ledger on that, and you can see why people get a bit negative about it, and maybe it falls over.
Too hard basket. I think some of the episodes we've recorded, it's quite a similar story where along the way there's been these pivotal people who, if they weren't there or they didn't push as hard as they did, things would have just gone on a completely different path.
Yeah.
So for you, really, you potentially would not even come to Australia. I'm sure you'd have found a way, but that could have been an option.
Undoubtedly. I mean, you never know, but absolutely, it's feasible that Australia wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for Paul, or certainly if it did happen, it would have looked very different to what my experience has been. I think at the time, there's no way if it hadn't been that role, I would have been in Australia at the time that I did, because we were only 3 years really post GFC. The East Coast was very quiet at that point in time. If it was really mining or nothing, unless we'd adopted or chosen to go down a permanent residency visa application process. But weirdly, I was working with a girl in the UK, a lady called Deb. She was doing her permanent residency process for about 12 months before I got the phone call, and I arrived in the country about 3 months before she did.
She'd have been spewing.
Deb.
Oh, Deb. Yeah. I know when we sat down and had a coffee a few weeks ago, you told us that you got here, you started, and then Paul left you.
I wasn't going to go there.
Sorry, mate.
That's really how I got the information about how much he pushed. Yeah. He pulled the pin on the day on my first day, then told me at the end of the first week, and then with him going, and it was real, like, just getting your head around the Australian way as well. So like, I was a project manager when I left the UK on 3 months' notice. Critical role, critical position. So they wanted to make sure that they got you locked in, because getting somebody new to fulfil that role would be right, and making sure that projects stay on track and stay, on time and on cost is really important. I was like, oh, okay, that's really sad, Paul. It's really sad. I take, maybe you're off in February or something like that. He's like, oh no, I'm gone at the end of the month. So 4 weeks notice periods. It's a different. That was a bit of the first adjustment, because you realise that here the notice periods tend to be very skinny. Still, they don't. I think it's different mentality in terms of don't want toxic people potentially undermining your performance. But it was what it was. But when he left, he'd obviously handed over his emails to me to say, if there's anything you need to go back through, do this. Searching back through different things, and you could see like just endless amounts of challenges to my potential employment being thrown up, and him just constantly knocking them back, saying, "Nah, we need to push on. This is what we need to."
I hope that's. I hope Paul was doing that because he really rated you, mate, and not because he wanted it out himself. As soon as I get this fellow over from the UK, I
never thought about it like that.
But, did it give you a confidence boost though? Seeing that must have been quite a nice feeling.
I didn't really look at it like that either. I think I just looked at it as a bit of a good fortune that I'd met somebody and struck up a connection with somebody that was prepared to sort of back me. And I mean, interview now, even face to face, right? So that was a phone interview.
Yeah.
We weren't really doing video conferences in 2011. So that was a phone call. I mean, we do interviews face to face now, and you're still, to some extent, taking the leap of faith on people. So I don't know that it was just they got a good enough feel. And I think often when you're recruiting, that's as good as it gets. unless somebody's coming recommended via a network, where and then again, you still got to hope that people mesh well with the teams that you've got and the people that you've got. And sometimes we don't generally employ bad people, just sometimes people don't fit into the mix of people that we've got or the culture, and it just doesn't work.
So for the thousands of people we've got listening overseas who might want to move to Australia as an engineer, what's some of the differences you found from the way the English, I guess, industry worked and then compared to coming over here?
If there's any, really very, very easy to settle in, to be honest. The standards that are adopted are very similar to what you see. I mean, I work a lot in rail. A lot of the rail standards and specifications lean on things in the UK. I think that's another attraction to this place. Like, the lifestyle is absolutely fantastic, but it's not a huge culture shock to settle in. I mean, I would imagine you feel that even in what you both do.
Yeah, for sure. Recruitment, I think it's the same around the world. If anything, I think it's probably a bit easier over here. I think in England, it's a very
like
dog eat dog.
Wolf of Wall Street vibes, I've been told, in London. Recruiters.
I think over here it's a lot more relationship based, where there it's just if you're the first one you're in, and it's people competing.
I think for engineers looking to come over, there shouldn't be any apprehension about trying to adapt or settle into the workflow, the way things are done. It's very, very similar, very focused on time and cost and forecasting and delivering to the design, meeting requirements. Really, that's one of the nice things. You can focus on your adjustment to the lifestyle and meeting friends and people. It's not a huge adjustment coming into that line of work, into getting comfortable in it at work as well. I think it's a huge step to take. It can't be underestimated. I think the earlier it's done, probably the better. But the distance from family, from known, really known friends and close friends, you kind of want to be focusing your attention on adapting to those changes rather than having to the battle of settling into the totally completely divergent ways that things are delivered in a common industry. So I think that undoubtedly that will have helped me settle in, because you're not really overthinking it. Yeah. And in our industry as well, lots of the Aussies have worked in the UK. So, I've worked on Crossrail, I've worked on this project, You got lots of commonality, even with the people Aussies that you're meeting over here. Yeah. So.
Is there still a big push for it at the moment? Like, I know in the medical space, like Australia's still screaming out for doctors and nurses to come over. Is that still the same case with engineers?
Yeah. Look, there isn't as much overseas recruitment. This is just a personal view. There is a ever increasing shortfall in the number of people to deliver the projects, though. I think the ACA say we're about 110,000 people short as an industry. That would be across white and blue collar, but to deliver, nationally what the pipeline is. But certainly pathways to come over on visas and sponsorship have been reduced back. And rightly so. It's about making sure that everything, if there are opportunities to employ people onshore, then that should be done and that should be the priority. I think maybe they've gone a little bit too far. It is definitely compromising us as an industry, being able to meet the demands of projects and programs, and bringing in the sort of experience we need. Certainly in infrastructure, we're seeing the experience is getting diluted, spreading people a bit too thin, and that's something we constantly have to manage. How can we resource for projects, but make sure that we've got the experience that we need to deliver complex projects? And what we're delivering on the Gold Coast is one of the most it's not technically complex, logistically very complex, and lots of interfaces. Yeah. And that can be really difficult and working in that sort of brownfield project. Not everybody's done that, because some of the Australian pipeline over the last 10 years, we're dragging people up from New South Wales and Victoria. There's been a lot of greenfield work, road tunnels, rail tunnels, that sort of stuff. And there's been a fair bit of brownfield as well, but there's lots of people have cut their teeth on sort of fairly linear, clean jobs. Whereas now we're in the mix of just trying to work through building our infrastructure job around what is a really, really congested, busy urban corridor. It's a different skill set altogether.
I'll stick to recruitment, I think.
Yeah. Has it differed to some of the big projects you've delivered down in other states?
Yeah, definitely, significantly. I've delivered one similar to this before, but a completely different dynamic. Main differences are community and business engagement. Done that extensively, but the sheer volume of touch points on this job, there's probably not another job in the country that's as complex from that aspect as what we're doing in the Gold Coast right now, which can be difficult. And certainly it's a contentious project, so it meets with a fair spectrum of viewpoints. So trying to deal with that is challenging. But the main way that what we really were pushing for in that aspect is that we're respectful of the people that are working on the job. They're here just to deliver a project on behalf of our client and our ultimate sponsor. And they live and work in the Gold Coast, and they're just trying to earn a crust and make a living and provide for their families. It's not them that are driving the political agenda of the project or anything like that. So that's a unique aspect. But as I say, I think it's just volume and quantity and how congested that corridor is creates that. The other unique challenge is probably a bit just around that it should be known, but just in the ground conditions in the Gold Coast just being so lots of sands, high water tables, that just creates it's a very dynamic in-ground environment. So what you're doing in one location and you expect to be mimicked in another is not. It's completely different. And you've got to be very agile and to try and adapt to that quickly. Everything's about production. Everything's about trying to be very well planned and executed so that you can stay in control of time and cost. And being able to pivot and mitigate really quickly is difficult. Larger, say, greenfield or even brownfield jobs, but with larger setups, you would have material stores and contingency materials available to you on hand to be able to adapt to some of that. We have no space on the corridor to be able to kind of have those contingency materials and other things. So, how we deal with logistics and how we deal with that just in time and contingency and pulling things in and moving things out quickly is like that's we've got entire teams mobilised that kind of address just those functions. And I don't think it's on the other jobs I've worked on we've ever had to do it to the same degree that you have to do it here.
Yeah, well, there's so much that goes into it here, which I think you can't appreciate unless you are in the thick of it.
Yeah.
So you're obviously the project director now. You came over as the PM in mining. What was the journey? Is that correct?
Yeah.
So what was the journey from there then to get to project director? And the reason I asked that, I want this to be a bit of a blueprint for anyone who's an engineer out there who wants to get to that level.
So the PM job in Perth was, and in the mining role, got me over here. I could see what's really got me to where I've got to now is I made the choice in about 2014 that looked like things were slowing down in that sector, but also it's quite the mining thing it's quite boom bust. So if oil prices are good, they'll continue to invest. If there's a bit of a stagnation in that, they'll look at their portfolios, and you're kind of tied to 3 or 4 major players. And I've sort of pined to get back into public transport infrastructure. The difficulty of that is I tend to find in the mining game, because production matters and it drives cost. There's a conversation about if you need to mitigate money, never time. In public transport, everything's so tight. There's no money and there's no time.
Brilliant.
But getting back to that, and I moved to the East Coast, and I kind of moved to Sydney, and worked in roles that sort of dragged me a bit between Sydney and Melbourne, and did also do some time in Victoria for a bit. But it was there, that southeast coast region is very connected in terms of how you're moving people in and out. You'll share knowledge from there. But then WestConnex and Sydney Metro's launched, and you started to see these multi-billion-dollar programs of work, Metro Tunnel in Melbourne, and that created all this opportunity and these huge ramp-ups in workforce, and meant that now there's more projects, there's more PM, PD, SPM opportunities, and climbs that way. But yeah, moving to the East Coast was the key thing. I think it'd be really difficult to do it, to be credible. What you ultimately need to do, clients are always looking for a CV that says, I can see that they've got transferable skills or they've delivered a job of a similar complexity, value. That's difficult to take sometimes. Like I've been given lots of opportunity based on my ability not to let people down in the past, whereas clients are always looking for a bit of a
tangible,
been there, done that, got the T-shirt. But we're short of people, right? So that's the case. And getting into the Gold Coast ultimately was actually through succession. So if you really want to climb quick and get yourself into roles, being in the right place at the right time in terms of being in a role that would give you an opportunity to step up if someone was to vacate, and showing that is a really good way. And I've done that a couple of times where I've gone into bigger projects, kind of got them under control, and then through one form or another ended up taking over and leading them through to the finish. But you kind of need to be in and around the sectors. Like in mining, it would have been really difficult to get to PD on a mining job because you've got various you've got a Mine Safety Act. Can't remember the exact terminology of that, but that puts very rigid constraints on certain roles that have done stuff. And mining's very conservative again. So to have got to PD there, could have probably spent the same another 10 years over in Perth doing this to try and get to that level. Yeah, well. And then if the mining companies back off, but with the pipeline of work that you could see in infrastructure in the East Coast, made sense to come over here, and it sort of fit a bit more with where my passion was. But yeah, so what I ended up in an alliance for a bit, so getting experience in different contract models, because there are different contract models. You can have alliances, you can have MCs, you can have hard dollar kind of D&C contracts, target costs, being aware of them and how they work. It's obviously really important. If you're going to be a PD, you're going to be the face upstream, so dealing with project stakeholders and the client, understanding different contract models and how you deal with change and how you manage that and how you collaborate and how you bring not just my direct team together, but my team together with the stakeholders' teams. Is showing that experience is really crucial.
Hi, I'm Yas Madbouli, founder and CEO of Serving Our People. Serving Our People is a general charity. We're a delivery and logistics charity that has started in 2020 to help with the pandemic and the disasters across the country. We are helping very largely in food insecurity. We've got 3 people's markets to help people to come and get much needed goods when they need it. We operate in Southeast Queensland and Northern New South Wales, and we're expanding beyond. Please come and support us on sop.org.au. And we're very thankful to be a partner with this amazing podcast.
I'm keen to learn a little bit about how a guy that left his first job in England because not wanting to manage a larger team, then transitions to being a project director for some of the biggest infrastructure projects in Australia's largest contractors.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose simple thing, this won't be necessarily all that inspiration for people. I didn't start out, I wouldn't say though at any point I've looked at it and gone at 25 years old, where I want to be in 35 or 40 is this. I've been quite flexible about as long as the next, I don't get, but I'm also pretty cool about we're in project work. If I was to find myself out of work at the end of this gig, that's all right. I'll work out what it looks like. And some people struggle with that. Like projects, they come and they go. Where you go from after that isn't necessarily a really well-defined pathway. It might not be that the company that you're working for have got work where you want to live. It might be that there's not that much work in where you want to live. You've got to be adaptable to that. And I suppose that's one of the things that I have been. I've lived in 4 states now. But I've tended to look at it more as, right, I can see on the horizon that this one's finishing up. Start talking with people that I've worked for, so GMs, EGMs. What are the opportunities that are coming up? Where would I potentially fit? What am I interested in doing? Do you want to think about, would corporate opportunities actually excite me? And I got into a bit of corporate work for a few years, and but really found actually coming back to projects was more where my passion was at the time.
I love what you said. I love what you said about you didn't have necessarily a set goal at 35, because in our line of work in recruitment, you speak to a lot of people and there's a fine line of ambition and not wanting to go on the journey. You know, we might have someone that's a graduate and comes and says, hey, I want to be a project director in 10 years. And they don't focus on the steps in the journey to get there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it seems like you just took it one role at a time, one project at a time. Yeah. How can I be better?
I've been ambitious, but probably in the role, specifically in the roles, when thinking about maybe the next move. Not we do development plans, obviously, everywhere I've worked at in the last sort of 4 or 5 years, particularly, I've done development plans. And it's always like, what's your 3 to 5 year goal? 3 to 5 years is like an entire project, if not 2, in a construction firm. So it's a bit hard. I always say it's a bit hard to really nail down and visualise what that looks like, because there's a fair bit of good fortune that comes into it as well about the work that you win. But as long as you're ambitious and you're being challenged in what you're doing, and you've got an opportunity to demonstrate your capability in the role that you're doing at the time, and you feel like that can lead, I've been comfortable with that. Now, theoretically, maybe you could have progressed a little bit quicker, having a longer term plan, but I've been pretty happy with just how things have panned out for me, looking at it maybe a bit more short to medium term as opposed to longer term.
It seems like you've been quite strategic in terms of how you operate at work. Yes, technically, obviously, you're very good, right? So you get...
Actually, technically, I'm abysmal, I would say, as an engineer.
But you're in the discussion, right, because you're at that level. But I think what seems to have pipped you against others when it is a promotion or a new role is probably you know who to win over, you know who to speak to, you know who to talk to.
Hopefully it doesn't seem quite as clinical as that. I'm good at understanding where other parties that we need to get outcomes from. And I think this is like a really key message to anybody listening is definitely when you get to this level, you're running a business as well. We'd talk a lot about this with certain key people that have really got a lot of accountability on the job. Effort is great. Effort, attitude's fantastic. But you get to a point in life as well in your career where you've got to be measured on your performance and your outcomes, and just kicking the can down the road, not being able to resolve things that'll stunt your ability to continue to move forward. Because businesses are looking for people that can resolve things. They want you to work autonomously. They want you to be able to resolve issues and challenges and find common ground with, particularly in projects, but find common ground with your stakeholders where everybody wins. Like ultimately, we still need to deliver on time and make some money, but we need everybody to win. And I've been pretty good at being able to break concepts down and work through problems with different stakeholders and get outcomes where everybody's comfortable that they've either been heard and they've been consulted with and that their concerns are addressed, but without compromising what we need to do for whatever business I've been working for. So that's a really, really important point, because we do talk a lot about that with people, even on the job now, that, effort alone, that's when you're younger, that's great. That'll get you moving to a certain point. But you're going to hit a threshold at some point where just the effort won't be the thing that sees your eyes. Your development plans, your performance reviews are going to start focusing on all this great work, but we don't actually. We still have to. Everything needs to be escalated. Everything needs to be. You need to be helped through the resolution of it. That's not going to work. And you run businesses, right? So you've got to get outcomes. Otherwise,
especially in small business as well. I think it's so performance focused, because it moves so quick, right? For us, if we had somebody who's trying really hard, but they're not generating any revenue, it's tough to us to actually, even if you wanted to actually keep them going for the health of the whole business. So definitely see that. In terms of and this is people coming through now or what's got you to where you are, what are some of the soft skills you think you possess or you value that stand you out?
I think I'm pretty emotionally intelligent. I think I've got a pretty good way of. I think I read people reasonably well. Although I was just in a leadership workshop, I think the other week, it was about 2 weeks ago, and they were saying that 95% of people think they're self-aware, but only about 5% are. so I'd say all of that with a pinch of salt.
Yeah. Did you say I'm in that 5% when they said that?
Yeah, exactly. There was a few people on the call that were like, I'm definitely in the 5%. So I don't think the metrics stack up if we're all in there. But generally speaking, I've found that I can get on with people. I'm an introverted style, which is weird. So I'm shy in social occasions and things like that. And my personality in work and outside of work is certainly very different. But I think generally I'm quite empathetic. We're working quite a hard industry, but my approach is more collaborative, and I want to help people through challenges and areas where they're frustrated, but if we need to have hard conversations around performance then that's what we'll do. But ideally, before you get to that point, we've talked about tools and tips of how we can manage situations, manage individuals, and coaching people to try and look at things a bit differently. Again, got to get out. Outcomes is the thing. So, and we deal with some really difficult, some challenging people on different jobs that I've been on. Kind of knowing again what gets a win for both of you. Looking at it from that angle, they're definitely, if you can take a step back and look at the situation and ask yourself those questions, might actually find. I think don't sweat the small stuff is a good mantra. We in our industry there's definitely some nitpicking that goes on. If it's 5 minutes of effort, just agree it. Go and have the bigger battle.
Yeah.
I think what happens there is you build like relationship collateral, so people know that when you are pushing back, that you're pushing back for something that matters, and that compromise is absolutely crucial in any of these situations.
I have the same theory with my missus. Like, there's little things that I don't really, I'm like, I'm actually not bothered about. You know what I mean? What do you want for dinner, maybe? I'm like that. But then if there is something that I'm like, actually, this can't happen or this needs to change, I'm like, look, I didn't say much about all the other stuff because I'm not too cared. This is one.
As long as you're not quoting this podcast.
We've just lost all our female listeners.
Good, right? But, I think there's lessons for life in that. Like, honestly, I'm fairly easygoing, generally speaking. But yeah, I try and take that approach into work. But kind of reading people is really important, and I think it all starts there. And then done a lot of my biggest challenge, like I said very early on, was my leadership skills were generally weren't too bad. I was good at reading people. Coming from small jobs into much bigger jobs, I've had to learn not to hold on to stuff, and I still get trapped with this sometimes. Like learn to I don't need to do that. That needs to be delegated. Communicate that early and pass it down early, and talk about what it is that you want out of it. If you can, those sorts of things. I mean, I see some of the younger engineers working through that have been on these big jobs, and their ability to like manage workflow is incredible compared to mine. So I've got a lot of admiration for the level of organisation and the way they manage those things. So we've all got stuff we've got to work on. But I think I'm good at getting an understanding of where people are at and reading the tea leaves and working out what we need to do to keep moving, as opposed to, I'm right, got to win every battle.
Yeah, this day and age, mate, we find it in our industry, you just lose people if it's like that.
Yeah.
And some of the big corporate agencies still operate like that in a certain way, and they are losing people because of it. So, yeah, but with those soft skills that you talk about, is that something you developed naturally through the jobs and experience, or have you gone and professionally worked on that?
I've been again fortunate that getting into a certain level at a certain point in time and working in larger corporates. So there's access to leadership training and stuff like that, and executive coaching and things. You can do that yourself, and those things are out there. But there's lots of leadership models out there. You look at DISC and Hogan and Myers-Briggs. Those sorts of things open you up to like what your personality type is, give you a bit of an idea of where your core strengths are, where your weaknesses are, some of your blind spots. More importantly, they actually give you a bit of an insight into what other people are and how like your particular blind spots might be complete red rag to a bull with certain people that you operate with. I think again it's just growing awareness. I don't look at it as in any sort of, again, in a clinical fashion and honing in on your personality type X and I'm personality type Y and we're gonna do things a certain way. I think it just again grows my sort of empathy of trying to understand what's going on with them in that circumstance. Is there something more to it, or are they sometimes just being belligerent?
Yeah,
that's the honest truth.
We've done a lot of work on personality types, and it's been great for us to understand each other. Like, obviously, we've been best mates for 15 years, but then stepping into business ownership together, the stakes are high, they're very different, and Adam's a hard D personality type.
That's D for dominant, by the way.
No.
I'm kind of high D, high C.
That's interesting.
INS is a bit low, but I'm pretty close to the threshold on all. But yeah, you can usually pick it. You or
high C.
High C.
Yeah, so I like to.
Okay.
Yeah,
I suppose that's your.
Yeah, I like to take my time, do the numbers, and he's there going, "Mate, can you fucking hurry up on this?"
Let's get this done, which works really well because certain things that aren't that important, we just need a decision.
Yeah.
So I just do them. I just sweet, lock that in.
Yeah.
Whereas if it is something a bit more complex or something that's got bigger consequences, naturally Harv kind of just takes over and it works really well.
Yeah, look, agreed. I think that's sort of reflects pretty good on sort of where I'm at. So I think dominance in my role is by nature. It's quite still we've got a lot of work to do. Still, we're making strides forward in terms of growing our diversity and female participation. But it's still a male-dominated industry, and I came through a time where it was very male-dominated, and that rubs off a little bit on you. I wouldn't say I bang my fist on the table, but occasionally you just need to be. I think the dominant part of me is I found in jobs, in projects, what you really need to making decisions quickly. Failing fast is important.
Yeah,
not a massive amount different to what entrepreneurs will tell you. Usually, failing fast is important, and making the decision to course correct quickly gets you back on track. And time's really precious on projects. So if you can work out you're getting down the wrong road quickly and course correct, that's really important. So that's where the dominance bit comes in. Then we're in engineering, so compliance is just like an absolute. That's what we're striving for. Unfortunately, I feel like we could do more in the innovation space as an industry. We're lagging behind there. But yeah, you just kind of get it drilled into you around compliance, and like top priority above all other things is safety. Mm-hmm. So we're always got a real strong focus on that, and I suppose just by nature you're looking at those safety, time, cost, quality. It's always going to drive a compliance mindset.
You referenced the ASA earlier, and they're very vocal at the moment about productivity in the industry. Productivity hasn't gone forward, it's gone backwards, and then innovation. What do you see needs to be brought in? What's being done at the moment to innovate, to bring in AI? Could be one.
I was going to talk about AI. So certainly the company I work for, we're trying to embrace AI. The minute I can't see how that necessarily works. There's lots of planning work that we do before we go into execution. And we're starting, and the team that I've got on the current project, there's really good application of AI tools. We've got our own instance of like a chat GPT.
Oh, cool.
Because we needed our own instance because we couldn't using chat GPT, which is open source.
Privacy.
And some of our, we were concerned about privacy and intellectual property being out there. So I think it's amazing that the business that I work for's embraced that and see that that's a massive innovation in terms of assisting people to become more productive. We don't have enough people, as I said, so maybe if we can get more out with less, then that's an important step forward. The productivity conversation is a pretty topical one right now, actually. So I won't go there fully. I think there's lots of little things that need to be done. It's not a one size fits all solution. There's certainly opportunities in our industry to automate. It won't be on really brownfield jobs because we're just never going to be able to, I think, get AI or robots or automation to work around lots of unknowns and constraints. We don't have data sets for where existing infrastructure is that's so accurate that automation could work around that. Yeah. Right? So you need to be able to pivot. The human eye needs to look at it and go, drawing says that's supposed to be there, it's there. What are the decisions we need to make? If you're loading all that into, and you look at like just a Tesla autonomous vehicle, amazing the smarts that it's got in it, but you can see that it can't correlate certain things all that well on Australian roads. It can't. It hasn't got the AI hasn't got the ability to read a filter light yet and things like that. So big brownfield jobs, I don't see automation getting that heavily involved, or being a solution that can be widely adopted. But on greenfield projects, certainly, like where you can get the constraints loaded in and get them loaded in accurately, there's opportunities, I think, with a lot of automation for sure.
Are there any specific programs that are out there at the moment that are starting to be used, or they need to really create these programs to get it started? Where are they in the journey? Put you on the pressure here.
Really put me on the pressure. I don't. Yes, there are not widespread in infrastructure. We're kind of looking at that. We're making. I think the big innovations really aren't again in process. They're probably more around how development of materials and looking at alternative materials. So how do we make concrete more sustainable? Those types of innovation. How do we maybe look at how we can place things a bit quicker? The major innovation or major technology improvement that's occurred the last 20 years has been about modular. So if you look into places in the industry, so we do a lot. The industry now uses precast a lot and effectively manufactures materials off-site that it can bring and build more quickly rather than through traditional mechanisms. I think you need to see modular needs to grow.
Yeah, they've been talking about it for years. I know when I came over.
No, it's done. It's done.
Yeah.
Like if you go to, don't need to look too hard in YouTube and look at some of the buildings and hospitals that are built in China, and they go up in, some of these things go up in days and months.
Yeah, wow.
Based on, but it's all modular built. It's all in huge manufacturing warehouses, built off-site, produced, delivered to site, and then just erected and complete fit. We don't do enough of that here. We're building from the ground up, but it's
why is that? Do you think?
I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. I mean, the UK is not massively dissimilar. I think they're a bit ahead in terms of some of the plant and machinery that's available in the UK. I think one area in Australia that could be improved is that I've found odd is you've got a population of 25 million or so here, 70 million in the UK, and we've got different specifications generally state to state. That's not maximising the. This is just Glynn's view, but that's not really.
That's what we want.
It doesn't take advantage of being able to buy materials and build specifications and improve specifications on a national basis. We're doing that state to state, and generally everybody knows about economies of scale. And the more that we look at things on a more micro level as opposed to macro level, like it's going to dilute the amount of benefit it can have. If you really, really want to get into like a discussion on, I'm going to handball this. If you really want to get into look at productivity in construction, there's a guy called John Davies who's the CEO of ACCA. He's really vocal. They've got a number of reports around productivity that are out there at the minute. He's really promoting productivity driving initiatives and trying to look at technology and remove our reliance on humans, look at automation, and they've got quite a lot of developed scenarios that they're looking at to try and improve that and effectively just get back to delivering more with less.
I think with the pipeline of work that we need for the housing for the population, and then obviously the infrastructure around it, then the Olympics, there's going to be a point where there's no other alternative than to innovate. So we might as well get ahead of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you just look at, like, as in terms of innovation, just like I was talking about with materials, we need to reduce our reliance on, things that are producing carbon in mass quantities like concrete. So what can we do? What can we do there? Reduce our reliance on raw materials and see what we can recycle, reuse, those types of processes. But I think overall productivity's got multiple limbs to it in terms of how you improve it. Some of it will be automation. Some of it will be about what do we need to do with people. And I think you made a statement this week about certain trades and stuff like that people, we won't effectively lose those workers from the industry. We actually need those workers to be doing different types of roles that are contributing more to building infrastructure and building things, as opposed to managing certain risks. So I think it's multi-pronged, but certainly ACCA, that's a major. I think they've got a conference coming up in August called Foundations and Frontiers, that they really want to focus on productivity and how they see the kind of revolution of the industry at the minute.
Yeah, I'm really excited to hear what comes out of it. Are they hosting it all around the country, or is it one event?
I think it's one event.
Sydney or Melbourne, wasn't it, you think?
Yeah, I can't remember the venue, but yes, almost certainly.
Yeah.
It's an interesting one. It's a big challenge for the industry overall. I think it's real. We've got as an industry, there is probably red tape and assurance is important. We need to make sure that we can all demonstrate that design life and durability requirements are all met, and that these assets are going to survive the test of time. But probably not being as efficient as an industry, we're not as efficient as we could be, and jobs are costing more. So we need it. So
solution
on a dollar for dollar basis, and say pound for pound,
Yeah.
on a dollar for dollar basis,
Converted.
what our payoff, we're getting more and more expensive, and that's not how it should be.
I've got a question here, and it might be a stupid question because I'm not an infrastructure expert, but once you've hit project director level, what are the next options for you?
What are the next options for me? I think there's a fair few, really. There's no limit. It could be another project. Could be a bigger project. Could be a smaller project. Could be a project in a different sector that gives me another technical challenge. Could be going into looking at corporate roles. Obviously, our roles all report into a business in some fashion. Most of the large businesses generally have like an operational, or a delivery structure that you report to, whether that be directly into an operations manager or a general manager, or if they're really big into an executive general manager. Depends on the organisation, but it gives you the opportunity. I mean, what we're running is like a small business or large business, depending on your.
It lasts to me.
So it's got all the functions there that you'd expect under a normal business. So got all of those opportunities. If I look at peers, some might have gone in and been general managers of construction businesses. Generally, general manager will probably have like responsibility for operational delivery, but work winning as well. So you might have those strings to your bow. One thing that I've done in the past, but not done enough of, is tendering and work winning. I'd potentially talk to the business that I work for about exploring opportunities in areas of the business that I've not got enough experience, but might support me to go in different directions. I think when we're talking about that, like kind of where to next type of approach. What I tend to do is I've generally got in my mind, all right, pathway might look like this or it might look like that, but it could diverge. I don't know that I necessarily know I want to go in either direction. So what would the next role be that might allow me to spur off into either? And it's just keeping the options open in case things change. Like family life might change, and honestly, project life can be really tough. Like corporate life can be as well.
Yeah.
But I think it's not as frenetic as projects. So if you decide this is, one a few years trying something different, you might go and do a corporate role, ops role.
Yeah, I love the way you talk about and acknowledge perhaps areas that you haven't got loads of experience in, and going and working on those and get experience there to set yourself up for the next step. At your level, obviously great, but even someone as a site engineer, a project engineer moving through, find what you haven't done.
I mean,
and go and do it.
That goes back to the small project, small business approach that I had the opportunity. But when you look at larger jobs, I think this is sometimes where people they get quite ambitious. But large projects, the other thing that's a bit limiting is you can look very specific disciplines. So an engineer might really only be looking at drainage or might be looking at structures. And then if you want to get to an SPE level or an area manager where you're over a whole load of scope in there, and you want to manage that, you could be a bit shut down to and have some fairly significant blind spots when you're on a big project. We're lucky on the job that we're running at the minute. It's we've got some really strong people. We've got really strong people in the SPE and area manager space, and they've got a good, well-rounded kind of discipline background. But you can see that in some of the site engineers keen to progress to project engineer, and project engineers to progress to SPEs. But it's really as you start climbing, your focus becomes much broader, and so we really need to trying to balance making sure people feel like there's opportunity and promotion available to them, but that we're doing that at a ratio that means that we're still not compromising our performance because they got the technical ability to deliver that work.
So one thing we like to do is, now we've had this really detailed discussion about the journey from start to finish, if you could tell young Glynn a bit of a golden nugget of advice to get him to where you are and beyond, what would be the top one?
I mean, there's lots of things I'd do again. Pivoting, I'd probably push through with the academic stuff a bit quicker. I wouldn't change the pathway, but I'd pushed on it a bit quicker. As much as I think you just find yourself as you just get older and you get into it a bit more, you find that your time and capacity to do it diminishes. Even I don't have kids, but even without that, because you just get further along in your career development, and maybe if we ever talk to like MBA, I'm probably more ready for that now than I ever. But the sheer commitment of that side whilst trying to do a job like this would be difficult. But I wouldn't change that much really. I genuinely, I don't think I'd be here now if I had gone into a typical engineering role and had done and been on projects straight out of uni. I think my small project experience has added so many more strings to my bow than other people that I've worked with. That I wouldn't change that. I wouldn't change coming out of engineering, even though I fell into it. It's really, really, really interesting. It's frustrating at times, but it's really, really interesting. If I wanted to earn more money, then I'd go into finance. If you want to become super wealthy, don't go into construction. That would be and don't work for somebody.
I love it.
But outside of that, no, it's good. I mean, it's such a balance. Honestly, I've got friends that are out there running their own businesses, building small construction firms and stuff. They love that, and in the future that might be a way that I'm keen to go, or I'd give some consideration to that. But you won't. The way the Australian market is, you won't get the opportunity to run large scale projects like I'm running at the minute without working for a tier 1 organisation and being on the books. The risk involved in these jobs and the potential impact of them not going right that can have on the bottom line of one of the project but also of a business is so significant that they'll always employ those people. You'll need to be tried and tested and have had that experience of working for those sorts of organisations. It's got massive it's not just time and cost, like I say, in terms of safety and what that can do for a corporate. The implications of that if you haven't got somebody with that experience who can manage the teams and manage the safety risk profile of a job. Yeah, they put a lot businesses, the construction businesses I've worked for, that's what they do. It's what we do. We've got to make sure we've got sound people in place to lead teams.
Awesome.
That's been jam packed. I think if you're an engineer starting out and you want to know what it takes to get to the top, I think that's a bit of a blueprint. I think the soft skills are really important. Yes, it's important to be good at academically and know your stuff, but really, how do you become employable? How do you become coachable? And how do you move through the ranks is equally as important as well. Yeah,
that's a good summary. Like, I think all companies will find that they can teach technical skills. More and more so now, people are looking for leadership skills early on. Personality types or people that come, not personality types clinically, but people that come across as having the right attitude and showing that they can manage people. The other stuff is definitely teachable. Like I said, I'm a pretty shit engineer, to be honest.
Glynn, mate, we know you're a busy man, so we really, really appreciate you coming down today. That was awesome. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah, me too. Thanks very much for having me. Cheers.